gold, right? You say they'll eventually get there, but why haven't they looked to Bitcoin yet as a store of as wealth preservation here and adding it to their coffers? Why haven't they done it yet?
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember this is a really small asset class still, right? I mean, Bitcoin is only a $700 billion asset. And so if you start to really look around the world, what you're going to see is you're going to see the nefarious governments do it first. And they're already starting to play this game. So what you see is countries that have sanctions based on that US dollar denominated system, like Venezuela, like Iran, like North Korea, they say, oh, wait a second, there's a decentralized digital system that I can participate in that no one can censor me on. Of course, they're going to go look there. And so not only are they saying we want to transact in it, right? They're also saying we want to mine it and we want to use this to have our citizens pay us and we want to pay other countries in this digital decentralized currency. Now, just like every technology in the world, whether it was beepers, cell phones, the internet, anything, the bad actors always adopt it first because they're playing a cat and mouse game with law enforcement or with kind of the good guys. And so same thing's going to happen here. So you're going to have the nefarious countries or the bad actors. They're going to use it first, and eventually every other country will use it as well. It just is a foregone conclusion that everyone is going to eventually kind of coalesce around the thing that they can guarantee with 100% certainty that no one else is manipulating. The problem, and we saw it for the last 4 years with President Trump's administration, right, was the relative devaluation of currencies and the constant battle. Who was devaluing more? Who was manipulating their currency or their economy more? Now, all of a sudden, there is a currency that no one controls, and everyone knows with 100% certainty that is provable how scarce it is and what the monetary policy is. And it's on display every day for auditability. And so I think that that's where central banks eventually are going to realize humans are really good at monetary policy until machines get involved. Just like many things, machines are better at doing things than humans. We are a machine. We just happen to have a lot of bias, fear, greed, emotion, etc. And so when you get into this programmatic monetary policy world, what ends up happening is having an immutable record of all transactions and having that programmatic monetary policy is superior. And then when you add in the fact that the legacy fiat currencies are being devalued at such a scary rate, it's no wonder that citizens, corporations, and financial institutions are all racing to go find how do they protect their wealth. And Bitcoin is the recipient and the beneficiary of that global search.
Well, on that note, I want to get your thoughts on the other big news item for Bitcoin this week. BlackRock authorizing 2 of its funds to invest in Bitcoin futures. This was according to filings from the SEC. The move allows exposure to cryptocurrency for clients of the world's largest asset manager for the first time. How significant is this news?
Yeah, look, if you think Wall Street's going to sit by and watch everyone else, quote unquote, get rich, there's no way that's happening. And so every single institution on Wall Street has now realized that Bitcoin has gone from a contrarian idea to a consensus idea. They're all doing something, whether they want to just buy Bitcoin and hold it long, whether they want to trade it, whether they want to market make, whether they want to invest in companies or in the infrastructure around the asset, they're all doing something. And it's because the writing is on the wall. The future global financial system is going to be digital. It is going to be decentralized. And the people who go and figure out how to get involved early will be beneficiaries. Just like the people who realize if I use the internet and I use a computer to conduct my financial transactions, I have an advantage over those who are not doing it yet. The same thing is happening now. The people who realize if I use the digital decentralized version, I can actually invest in the same exact asset. And I can usually do it in a transaction with the same counterparty. I'm just now buying a stock, bond, currency, or commodity in a digital format rather than electronic QSIP format. And so the people who are there early will get the beneficiary of that kind of outsized performance. Eventually that will get commoditized down. Just like in the move from the analog world to the kind of an electronic QSIP world, same thing, move from electronic QSIP world to a digital world. And so BlackRock's realizing that, so is everybody else on Wall Street. And as I keep saying is Bitcoiners don't want to sell their Bitcoin, but the institutions want Bitcoin. And so the US dollar price has to appreciate in order to accommodate everyone.
I like how you described Bitcoin as the ultimate financial apex predator. You use your platform to dispel a lot of myths and things that get under your skin that circulate surrounding Bitcoin, so a lot of FUD out there. What are some of the top 3 that really get under your skin? I know the Tether one bothers you, but what do you think are the biggest, rumors or just myths surrounding Bitcoin right now?
Yeah, so Nothing gets under my skin. I'm super chill. Like I kind of have gotten to the point where, look, I will continue to educate people on this stuff. I will continue to have, probably more skin in the game than almost anybody I know. And I believe that this is what's going to happen. I'm willing to be wrong in public about it. I'm also willing to have my mind changed if the information changes. But so far, not only has my conviction not changed, my conviction has deepened in what I've been talking about for the last couple of years. And so what I think is, really kind of frustrating to some people is when folks that have large platforms or in positions of power or influence start to discuss things that they just haven't spent the time to educate themselves on, right? So when people start to say it's a Ponzi scheme, if you look at the definition of a Ponzi scheme, like there's just no correction, no correlation whatsoever to Bitcoin. And so that's almost a sign to me that somebody just hasn't spent the time and isn't educated. Now, there's two ways to respond when people have these kind of misconceptions or misinformed. One, we can sit and we can ridicule, mock, and basically make fun of these people and say, hey, you're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. Have fun staying poor, kind of all the memes that fly around on Twitter and Reddit. Or we can do the exact opposite. And what I try to do is I basically reach out to the person and say, hey, listen, I saw that you said this. I disagree with it. I think that I can share some information with you that may change your mind. Are you open to a conversation? And again, not everyone takes me up on it, but what I try to do is just say, look, I'm here to have a rational conversation, right? I'm not here to be kind of a Luddite when it comes to this is the only way. And regardless of how the information changes, I'll never change my mind. Like on a very frequent basis, I evaluate the market, I evaluate the asset, I evaluate the alternatives, and I evaluate all of the players in the market. And I continue to have conviction here. Here's why. You may agree with me, you may not, but I think having a rational, welcoming conversation to the people who are uninformed is actually the best way to kind of accelerate all of this rather than kind of ridicule and mock folks. Now, if you're just a kind of a bad actor in the sense of like, that what you're saying is wrong and you're still saying it because you're looking for attention, I'll be right there with everybody else with all the memes and gifs and jokes and stuff like that. But there's very, very few of those people. And those people are less investors. They're more entertainers and they kind of know what they're signing up for. But for the most part, I think just being accepting of people, especially people who are open to learning more and trying to kind of wrap their head around this is the best way that we can accelerate everything.
I'm going to throw one at you, then we can wrap with this. Bitcoin is a massive bubble. That's probably the most prevalent one out there right now. What do you see to those people?
Yeah, again, right? It's one of these funny things where, okay, maybe, but if that's true, then eventually the bubble will pop and it will go to zero. Okay, well, I will have so much skin in the game that if that happens, that would be really bad for me. I don't believe that's going to happen, but my opinion doesn't matter. And neither does whoever says that the Bitcoin market is a bubble. Like ultimately, nobody's individual opinion matters. It's what the market believes. And so far, every data point we have suggests that Bitcoin is not only not a bubble, but that actually Bitcoin is being adopted at the fastest rate that we've seen of almost any asset in history. And therefore, from a price standpoint, it has been the best performing asset of the last decade. And so anytime that you get such an asymmetric opportunity where literally there's a low probability of something working, but if it does work, there is massive payoff of value and value accrual to that asset, that's somewhere that I want to be involved. And so Bitcoin to me is like the ultimate asset where that manifests itself. And so that's kind of how I think about it. It's like, sure, there's plenty of people who think it's a bubble, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's, whatever else. But if that's true, the market will determine that and it will go to zero. But if you believe that, then you should short it. Like you should short Bitcoin. If you think it's a bubble and it's going to zero and you really truly believe that, short it. But what I end up finding out is most people who say that they don't actually believe what they're saying. Their portfolio doesn't match their words. And therefore, you always got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. And as Nassim Taleb says, don't tell me what you believe, just show me your portfolio. And, mine speaks for itself. And any detractors, I'm happy to see them shorting Bitcoin and see what happens.
Last thought, I swear, on a scale of 1 to there is no top, I've heard that. Where does Pomp fall in terms of Bitcoin forecasts this year?
Yeah. So the forecasts are always weird, right? Like in order to have a true prediction, you have to predict price and also timeline. I am less and less of a fan of predicting things as I get older. But in 2019, I wrote a piece that said, I believe that Bitcoin was going to go from, it was around $10,000 at the time to $100,000 by the end of 2021. So by the end of this year, hit $100,000. I said that, now almost 2 years ago. I still believe that. I haven't changed it. Somehow I'm now the most conservative guy guy in the room because now there's people saying, 200, 250, 300, 500, whatever the numbers are. I'm just going to stick with 100K. I kind of did the work. Nothing's changed. I still believe we'll at least hit that. So I'll stick there. When we look out over a very, very long time horizon. So if you give me the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, don't put a time prediction on it, just tell me kind of where the value of this thing goes. I absolutely think at some point in my lifetime, we'll see $1 million Bitcoin price, but I don't know if that necessarily has more to do with like Bitcoin value accrual as much as like the devaluation of the dollar, and just over a long period of time, everything, goes up in dollar prices from real estate, stocks, precious metals, et cetera. But I just think it's a foregone conclusion. You just got to be able to stomach tons and tons of volatility, literally, 50% drop in a day, 80% drawdowns over a year. And then also hundreds of percent of appreciation in, just a couple of months. Like all of that volatility scares a lot of people. But if you're a long-term holder, you kind of do your research and you get comfortable with it, then I think that it could be a pretty amazing thing to put in a portfolio.
Pomp, I appreciate your time today. This was a fantastic conversation. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, or thanks for letting me come on and rant for a little